We have a huge call here from Dave Wasserman. How do we decide to say her name?
Well, I don't think we did.
Okay,
Yeah,
Janet
she's blowing this guy
has defeated
out.
Daniel Kelly for the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Wow.
The result flipping the ideological control of the court from conservative to liberal, a huge victory for the pro-choice side. So that's the call there from Dave Wasserman. Obviously, we'll wait for the AP, but that's usually as good as it gets for the early one.
And it's early.
Initial reactions.
Well,
Emily,
that's an early call. And when you're looking at these numbers, we see 71% votes are in from Waukesha County. That's where I'm from. Kelly got 59% of those 71% that are in. Yep. And Protasowicz has 41%. 41% in Waukesha County. Now, part of that is millennials changing voting patterns.
Yeah, talk about those numbers, because he would want something like mid-60s.
Can we back up
area, right?
before the election results?
Yeah.
Explain why this is important.
Yeah.
Why should anyone care about the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
Well, Krystal and Ryan might have additional thoughts on this, but I will say I think it is correct. Both the left and the right, you'll notice, have framed this as a referendum on Scott Walker's era that he ushered into in Wisconsin. Wisconsin has been on a seesaw for the past decade plus. I was in high school when the Act 10 drama was going down. I had teachers who made up excuses to get out of class and go protest, and it was new for Wisconsin, which is a historically working class. Very often, much of the rural parts of the state all voted Democrat. You know, that district in northern Wisconsin, David Obey had it for 40 years, and it flipped in 2010 with Sean Duffy and the Tea Party years. Wisconsin has been on the seesaw, going back and forth. Scott Walker lost, and it's, who's going to win based on turnout, who's animated based on turnout, and that's why when Wasserman says this is a big win for the pro-choice side, that's because they animated voters on this abortion issue. They successfully got more pro-choice voters out than they did pro-life voters in a state that was seen in the corporate media as being this beacon of the conservative movement. The conservative movement had taken over Wisconsin, and it just was never true. It was never true, and all of these different Act 10 issues, abortion issues, gerrymandering issues are in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court and will be decided by the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Right.
So this is huge.
Go ahead, Ryan.
And so far, abortion rights have been on the ballot in Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, now Wisconsin, and every time abortion rights voters have come out and upheld them.
Interesting how that works, huh?
How about that? Yeah. So, like Krystal said, there's this 1840 law on the books, and it's working its way through the courts right now. But while it is, abortion is not happening in Wisconsin.
Yep.
This will change that. Like this is a way that people can vote and change their material lives. So and then there's the gerrymandering, which is huge. Right. And then there's also the 2024 election.
I was going to say, I think that one is also worth a mention. Guys, can you throw up C2 here, please? We have a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel piece where they actually lay it out quite well. The interesting thing to note here is that there is a 4-3 majority on the court for the conservatives. Now that he has lost, and I'm not even going to try and attempt to... Janet. Now that Janet has won, we're going with Janet. Janet, it's not a disrespect. I swear to God.
Justice Janet.
Now that she has won, she has now won a 10-year term on the court, which means that the next race on the court is not until 2025. So we have a 2-year period here where 4-3 liberal majority will stand. At a time when abortion is directly before the Supreme Court, voting is before the Supreme Court on gerrymandering, and critically, all of the Stop the Steal efforts that were happening in the Wisconsin state legislature during the 2020 election, which might have been challenged if there were any Republican victories in the state legislature that might have led to attempts to decertify or have a different interpretation of electoral college law. All of that will now be before a liberal court in a direct flip on the issue. So
people forget that Trump's challenge in 2020 was rejected 4-3 by the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Yes.
If he had won that changes everything.
Right. Because we could have been president.
Democrats were able to say it's been seen by 50 judges, and all 50 have thrown it out. Get out of here with your nonsense. If they had won in Wisconsin, all bets are off.
And by the way, my understanding is the one conservative who sided with the liberals on that, it wasn't on really the merits of the case. It was on some procedural standing issue. And so there was very deep concern that if you end up with this conservative majority, that next time around, they may not go the way that they did this time. So that was certainly incredibly important. I just want to underscore the abortion piece, though, because I do think this was central. And, you know, anecdotal reporting from the ground is that every voter was basically like, I'm here because of abortion. I'm here because of abortion. Because it is super real and it's super tangible and it's, you know, super like present in people's lives right now. This law is currently in effect. It is winding its way through the courts, as Ryan said. And now Justice-elect Janet was quite explicit. I mean, you know, we're used to this game that like Supreme Court justices play. Oh, I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to opine on cases that. No, she was pretty clear. Like, I do not think this is appropriate. Some 1840s law is certainly, women couldn't even vote then. Certainly we shouldn't be abiding by that law. So she was very clear about how she would vote on it. And I do think that was probably the dominant issue. To speak to Emily's point about the political dynamics in the state, voters have more often than not in statewide races elected Democrats. But at the legislative level, it is wildly different. Republicans have so much power within the state legislature because of this post-2010 gerrymander. And I know we can talk about this and your eyes glaze over, but they only need to win like 40% of the vote in order to win majority in the state legislature. So you have a situation where, you know, a party that has lost statewide repeatedly and lost the popular vote repeatedly still has all of this power in the state. And that's one of the other issues that now Justice-elect Janet has talked openly about how she does not think that that is appropriate and would take a hard look at these lines that have been drawn. So huge, huge stakes here in terms of reproductive rights, huge stakes in terms of gerrymandering, and of course, from a national perspective, certainly huge stakes for future stop the steal election nonsense.
The congressional delegation of 8 is 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats, like that alone. And it's in a 50-50 state, and they have borderline supermajorities, right, of Republicans in the state legislature.
Well, and this is where I would say Wisconsin Republicans have gotten way too comfortable. I made the same argument in 2018.
Like a monopoly.
So I want to say, you know, it is absolutely important to look at Wisconsin, and I'm not saying this just because I'm from Wisconsin, as a really good test laboratory for the country at large. It actually has, urban centers, it has rural areas, it has pretty robust exurban and suburban areas, and this is a state that had a really big organizing history, that has a history of socialism, Bob LaFolle, and all of those things, because it came out of the early labor movement and because it came out of that period where labor had a lot more power, where rural areas were very different culturally. And so when you look at what's happened in the state of Wisconsin, where you have a lot of people, I mean, Bernie Sanders trounced Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin, trounced her. Donald Trump draws big rally crowds. He's always had a close race in Wisconsin. And that's the country. I mean, really, Wisconsin is the country. And when you look at an issue where you have Republicans running on crime, this you can draw a direct line from, you know, let's just say you can go from Kenosha to Chicago. Just take that short drive from Kenosha to Chicago. Republicans in Wisconsin were running on crime. They tried to cast Justice-elect Janet as being soft on crime, which they thought in this climate where like carjackings are just up astronomically in Milwaukee. That would do it. That this is how they win. This is their roadmap. And instead, you know, Chicago looks like you're going to have the most left-wing mayor since the 80s. I mean, it's not what Republicans think it is.
Yeah,
let me throw one more wrench into this, because the question of supermajority was brought up, and there's actually a state Senate special election that is also going on, which will determine whether or not Republicans have a supermajority. And this also connects to the state Supreme Court seat that we have been discussing, because some of them have already openly been saying that if they get that supermajority, they're going to impeach Justice Janet right away. So they're talking about it already. Like, if we get that 2/3, we're coming for her even before, you know, she had even won the election. So it is high stakes, all of these things, and quite noteworthy. But I do think one of the things that was most telling to me was the fact that Janet was running very aggressively on, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let this anti-abortion law go into effect. And Dan Kelly, the conservative candidate, was more like, I'll talk about that when we get to it. He took more of the typical line, which shows you that he was much less comfortable talking about the issue.
Dr. Oz.
Looks like the Republican is up by about 100 votes.
Okay.
in that special election.
Well, how many more votes to be cast?
It was 86% in, and there's 63,000
pretty close.
votes.
Wow.
I will
Pretty
say
damn
nail
close.
biter.
Yes.
some real breaking news coming from my iPad right now from my mom. Krystal is right. She is right. She is right about the gerrymandering issue as well.
There you go. Thank you, Mrs. Jashinsky. Is that the
Thank
right
you.
way to say it?
Thank you, Mama
people
Jashinsky.
No offense.
People hate that their vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
And we know that in D.C. as people who go out and vote just for fun, like it doesn't count for anything.
Like,
But
just
Speak for
use
yourself,
chalk.
Ryan. Some of us
Theatrical
fled
duty.
this crap for exactly that reason. Okay, any other final thoughts here that we want to wrap up on maybe on Chicago? I know that we still don't have the exact cut there, but Wisconsin, obviously, the fact that we were able to even make a call here tonight on the stream is actually pretty incredible.
Yeah. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.